What's up, Summoners? King Blair here. Today we're going to be talking about a concept that will make you be better at Epic 7 and any gacha game for that matter, and even a lot of different games such as League and Smash, and it'll help you understand a lot of why certain things are the way that they are using Epic 7 examples. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe for more Epic 7 content. I have a lot of things planned for you guys, guides, rankings, top 5s. So make sure you subscribe to get all of that content. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So how the video will roll out, because there is a lot of things to talk about and I want to keep it as succinct and easy for you guys to follow, is first we're going to talk about the 4 things that can affect your consistency and your reliability. Then we're going to use examples in PvP and PvE to kind of help you understand what I mean with those concepts and kind of the things about reliability, what does that mean, and risk taking. And last but not least, we're going to take a look at some specific really good units that exemplify why this is a thing and why you need to be aware of it to be a better player. So first, what are the 4 things that can affect your battle? We're talking about battle because Epic 7 has so much RNG. We're talking about consistency and reliability in battle. So there are actually 4 things, my bad. So 4 things. So in a battle, when you go in, the first thing that is the biggest RNG factor that is going to mess you up is effectiveness. So effectiveness, if you guys don't know, let me show you guys a unit that I have with high effectiveness. Basically, one of the weirdest things with effectiveness is that all units, your effectiveness, you see that he's at 59, right? So if my enemy has 100% effectiveness, that means that I have a 41% chance of my debuff not landing. However, if I have a unit that has 100 million% effectiveness, it still will not matter. They still have a 15% chance to resist my debuff. And that is a really bad thing in Epic 7. That is something that I honestly feel like it should get reworked, because it just doesn't make sense to me to have the effect resistance gets so much of an indirect buff, and not building effect resistances is viable because of that. Where I feel like it'd be a better dynamic if they made it so like if your effectiveness is over 40 of their effect resistance, your debuffs should land all the time. It would promote more characters to be built and a lot of different things, but it would have to be a massive rework. But that's number 1. So effectiveness and effect resistance. The next one is your crit rate. So crit rate, y'all, it's so important, and it's something that it's like I had to start doing with my units, because let's look at my Charon, for example. So my Charon is at 98% crit rate. If I go in a battle, there is a 2% chance, so there's a 2 in 100 it will happen, 2 in 100 times chance that will happen that I will miss a crit. And I cannot tell you how many times I have lost because of a crit missing. And it is one of the most tilting things to happen to me, and it's something that it makes me want to build to 100. But you know, not every character and not every unit can be 100%. And even if you don't want to, like sometimes I don't want my units to crit. Like for example, my Dizzy, even with 40%, because I get unlucky with rolls, she will still crit on Moonlight Kens, and I will lose fights because of that, because all characters have a base crit chance of 15. So critting, really important, especially because when it comes to MO Ken and some other characters, it's one of the other RNG battle factors that you have to consider is your crit rate. Third concept that you have to consider is missing. So on defense, that's Assassin Cartuja. If y'all know, that's the passive, Moonlight Dreamblade, but also elemental advantage and disadvantage. So if we look at Lilius, one of the reasons why Lilius is such a popular unit is because she is fire, and Basar has a 50% chance to miss on her because Basar is earth, Lilius is fire, so Basar has a 50% chance to miss. And when you miss, your debuffs don't necessarily land unless it's like Abyssal Crown, and then they will land. But a normal character inbuilt effects will not land unless it's an artifact effect, which avoids missing, which is why some artifacts are really, really good. But the other thing is also just overall, whenever you take unit disadvantage, that's a RGB disadvantage. And you get the advantage when you're ahead that you get 15% chance extra to crit and also to make sure that you hit. You don't get that 50% chance to hit them, but just watch out for the disadvantage. The other thing is also the hit debuff, the hit miss debuff. That's a big RNG factor that can affect your fight. But now, last but definitely not least, there is speed RNG, which is one of the biggest ones. I made a whole video talking about speed RNG, so I'm not gonna go into super detail about it, but just know that if you have a unit that, for example, my Kayron is at 245 speed, my Assassin Kali is a 168 speed, and that's not because I want them to be so much faster, it's because I want my Assassin Kali to go first, and there is a 5%, 5% plus and 5% minus for all characters at the start of the fight for speed RNG. It comes out to be about like 10 speed for most units, but when you get into the higher tiers, it starts mattering more. Like that extra like 20 speed becomes like 1 extra speed RNG that you have to deal with. So it becomes even 6 at the upper levels, like a 280 speed. So that's the other one, but I discussed that a lot more in depth in other videos, so make sure to watch them. So those are the 4 big things that affect your combatness, like the RNG of your fights. So what am I saying? That consistency and reliability. So first we're gonna start with PvE, because I don't think there is a better unit, a better hunt to explain this concept than the current Wyvern W13 hunt. So as you'll know, Wyvern, it's like you must put 3 debuffs on him, and you only get 3, maybe 4, depending on your team, chances at landing a debuff. If you have artifacts, it helps a lot. But as you guys know, there's still a chance, and it's so hard to get a 100% run in Wyvern. I almost want to say it's impossible, because theoretically, there is a 15% chance in the game that can mess you up in your Wyvern run, because all your units can miss the debuff. So it doesn't matter how much effectiveness you have. That is not, I'm not saying that to discourage you from doing Wyvern or to build Wyvern teams, but the big thing that you have to start thinking is when you start taking into consideration these RNG factors and start mitigate them. And that's what I want to tell you guys about. You need to mitigate these RNG factors that are affecting your gameplay. So what can you do to mitigate your RNG factors? So first, y'all saw my Wyvern team. I use that one. It has about a 70 to 85% win rate, sometimes 90. It's really random. I haven't really like measured it out exactly. But if you look at my Sigrid, she has 67 effectiveness. Why is it 67? The Wyvern has 80% effect resistance, but there's that RNG 15% plus or minus chance that my debuff will miss anyway. But I want to get that number as low as possible. And that's why I decided to put her at that certain percentage. The other thing that I'm actually lacking here, if y'all see her with the crit rate, it's at 84% crit rate. I need that to be 85, because since it's only 84, there's a 1% chance that she'll miss the crit, and there's runs that I lose because of that 1%, because of I don't have 100% crit against the Wyvern. So me being a player, I need to look at my things, and I need to look at, okay, what should I make level? If I make this level 90, boom, problem solved. I'm at 100% crit rate for Wyvern. And that's what you need to do. Like, you need to do that analysis, or you have to think of what the risks are if you don't. My risk is if I don't do that, my runs are gonna be more inconsistent. And that's something I need to do. And that's something I just realized while making this video. So it's something I'm going to do once I get enough materials, because I need that to be at 100. I need to have her crit all the time to be able to win. The other thing is, if you guys look at my other unit, which is Karen, right now, I have Torn Sleeve on her, so she has more opportunities to put debuffs, and I decided to use Karen because Karen can take 2 turns, and usually I have the Wyvern set up so it always kills when Karen's second skill is up, so she can second skill, defense break, apply bleed, and then get an extra turn and apply bleed again. So that just introduces more scenarios where I am less likely to miss. Yes, this artifact isn't 100%, which is why it stinks, but this is why Alexa for Wyvern W13 is so good, and why Furious is so good is because Furious can have Song of Stars, which also has a very high chance to proc target, and he also has that defense break similar to Karen, but his is for 2 turns, And then the auto attack as well, it does a lot of damage. Same reason why Terranor Guard is so popular is because with the dog artifact, you're reducing those chances by introducing more cases where debuffs are applied. So that's what I'm trying to get you guys. You have to start thinking, okay, how can I mitigate these RNG factors? How can I make sure that I win that fight? So now let's move over to PvP, where it's probably the portion that I'm going to be talking a lot about, and some of the RNG. I'm going to try not to make it too long, but let's just look at a defense. Let's just say I will look at this defense, right? And one of the most popular ways to beat a defense like this one, not like this one, but more like, I need a tanky one. None of these are tanky. Oh, this one. Okay, let's just do this one, right? So one of the popular ways to take down this type of defense is with a cleave comp. So this is my personal cleave comp, and I'm gonna show you guys how I implemented RNG reduction, consistency, and consistency and reliability in my cleave team. So the big reason, if you guys see here, unit-wise is a unit I'm gonna talk about right at the end, but Basar, the reason why he is so consistent and why he is such a good unit is not because he's fast, it's not because he strips buffs and puts cannot be buffed, it's because if you soul burn his third skill, you cannot miss your debuffs. So I know when I put Basar versus Athletica versus Cerise versus all those other attack power boosters, I know that when my Basar goes, I will always guarantee myself to be able to strip them, push them back, and put cannot be buffed as long as they are not fire. So if you guys see that they have a Charon. So okay, now I have to start thinking, should I attack with this cleave offense? Now I start seeing, okay, my win rate initially 100% when I look at this. Right? You always start at 100% because your Basar will never miss the debuffs. But now there's a fire unit. So okay, I can miss on him. He could be on immunity. So that's a 50% chance that I'll miss that critical thing to take out and I won't crit on him. And then my CDOM won't get the turn. So okay, how do I mitigate that? I know I'm getting 3 crits. I made sure my Basar has a 100% crit rate, so he doesn't miss a single crit. I have my CDOM here, who is fast enough. She's at 180 speed. So the chances of them cutting me, unless it's a speed Charon, which is the next thing I'm going to talk about, unless it's a speed Charon, my Challenger Dummy will be able to give the crit buff, which means now my BBK has a 100% chance to crit. So that's good. More consistency, right? You're trying to lower the chances of you losing. And last but not least, probably the weakest point of any cleave comp is going to be that defense breaker. Tywin is probably the most reliable. He has 100% defense break. And the other thing is that he's tanky. And that is something I can always rely on, is his tankiness to survive a Charles counterattack. So that is something that I made sure that he will survive if I get counterattacked by this Charles, because I have to assume as a player that this Charles will always counterattack and crit. But now the other thing I have to think about is, okay, he's water, they're earth, I get guaranteed turn with her. So it's like, okay, he's water, I can miss on the Charles, I can miss on the Basar, I could not even hit the Charon. So now I have to start thinking, okay, I could miss all those, or I could just have the 15% chance to miss the defense break. So now it's like, okay, that's another RNG factor that I can't take into consideration. So it's like, okay, now I really have to start thinking, is my BBK strong enough? And the other thing that I didn't even mention is his Basar faster than mine? And if he's not, what if I get speed RNG? So you see all these different factors that I think about before I click yes, start battle. Because I know even though I have Basar who's consistent, there are all these other factors that could mess up my fight. So that means I will not take this team or this cleave team, and I will not try to cleave it because there are way too many unknown factors. So that's how it plays into your arena offense. And that's the way you have to think. You have to think, oh yeah, if my Basar hits, I just win. No, that's not how you think. Don't think just because, oh, if this happens, I win for sure. You have to think the other way around, where it's, if nothing goes right, I can still win, right? And what team does that for me? This team. So this team, if nothing goes right, Basar takes first turn, he hits everyone, puts cannot be buffed on everyone, Charon comes in, Ulti is probably my Kayron. My Kayron will survive with 1 HP. I'll be able to remove the debuffs with Lilius. That's consistency. Kayron's passive will always proc. Consistency. I know my Kayron is faster than the rest of their team. Like that faster than their Charles and their Moonlight CC. Boom, more consistency. I know my Lilius has Aureus to cut down the damage, and I know she can remove all the debuffs. Boom, consistency. My Apocalypse Robin, I know she's tanky enough. She's not going to die first turn. Boom, more consistency. Spectre Tenebria, she's just strong. I'm not going to rely on her stun. I can't rely on her stun, but I'm telling you, when I get the chance to use the ultimate, I will use it on Charles to lower the chances of Charles counterattacking me. So that's where I start thinking of all, like, now I went from there's 2 unknown factors for me, which is, will the Charles counterattack and my Spectre Tenebria miss the stun, or will I not be able to one-shot the Charles? And that's it. That's basically all it comes down to, the Charles, which is like, that's the other aspect of a defense, of the defense. But you guys see why tank teams are so good in all gacha games? It's not because cleave teams are bad. It's because tanky teams are just so much more reliable. Like, I wish I could take like a Crow. I could take my Kayron. I could take like a Ambitious Tywin. Like, if I haven't built, I could take an Elena, and I could just tank him out, or a Seaside Bellona. And I know my tank units will never miss their main skills for buffing me. Will never miss cleansing, and will never miss like Crow. Oh, he's so good because of that. But now let's look on the flip coin side of things. Let's say you are the person defending. So when you are defending, it's the complete opposite of everything I told you. You want to start thinking, how much RNG can I add to my defense? How much RNG can I add to make sure that I can cheese some wins? So right now, this defense for me, it's not my final defense. I want to upgrade this defense. It's not perfect. But when someone sees this defense, they see fire. So they're like, okay, I can't really take Bazaar, right? They see the Assassin Cartuja, boom, 15% chance plus to miss. Now, if they take someone that's like a Lidica, they could miss a crit. And then they just lose because my Kayron could be super fast. The other thing is, I don't know how fast the Kayron is. I don't know how fast his Bazaar is. Another set layer of RNG for someone coming in to attack me. And last but not least, the unit I really want to add to this to make it like the best defense I can possibly make with the current account I have, I would add a Charles in here, because now they have to think, wow, if I bring Seaside Bellona and try to tank him out, what happens if this Charles just absolutely dunks the rest of my team and just wipes me out? And I can't kill him because Assassin Cartuja's there. That's what you have to think about. That's why that is so good. The reason I have Apocalypse Ravi is because they don't know how tanky my Apocalypse Ravi is. And they don't know how fast she is. They don't know if she's on counterattack set. They don't know if she can counterattack on their squishy units. So that's why I have her for now, but Charles would be so much better. So that's the other aspect of defense RNG. You want to mess up their chances of winning by introducing unknowns, and Assassin Couture is the best at doing that. I've explained that in my arena defense video. Now last, but definitely not least, let's look at some units that exemplify what I've been telling you. And these units are units that are good because they are good, reliable, consistent units. So when we look at the mages, I talked about him a little bit, but Bazaar. Bazaar is a good hero, not because this ultimate is broken, because he had the exact same ultimate. He had this exact same, they did not buff this ultimate. This ultimate has always been there. Always. But you know what made him more people start building their Bazaars? That they started adding the part where it can ignore effect resistance. He went from being a trash unit to instant god tier from just switching this ratio around. That's it. That's all they did to him, and that's all he needed. They also increased like the chance of this hitting, which is really annoying for defense. But this, that's literally it. That's all they did was add, oh, if you burn this, 100% chance that your effects will land. And that completely obliterates any RNG. The only thing you have to think about is speed RNG. So if you have the godliest, fastest Bazaar in everywhere in the world, you will pretty much have such a consistent cleave comp at that point because there is nothing they can do about it. They can't beat it. Let's look at another unit who is really, really good on the other side of things, who is actually a Soul Weaver, who was a really good Arbiter Builder counter, Sinful Angelica. Why is Sinful Angelica so good? versus all the other extinction units. Versus even Emil Haste. I still think she's a better killer than Emil Haste for a lot of scenarios. Why? Why is she so good? Because when she has a buff, you are guaranteed, no matter how you kill the unit, that they will not be revived. Versus with Extinction, you actually have to kill the unit. So you introduce miss chance, you introduce crit rate, you introduce their Moonlight Dreamblade, you introduce all these other factors that you have no control over, that you may or may not be able to get the kill with Extinction. Versus for her, boom, just slap this on, and you're done. You did the job. It doesn't matter how you kill them, because they're gonna die. The other unit that is honest, the last unit that I'll talk about that kind of shows why Bruiser Tam comps are so prevalent right now is Krau. And why? Because he's so reliable. He's always going to do his job right. He will never fail you. Why do I say that? This skill has a provoke, doesn't even matter. Not even what he's here for. This is like icing. This provoke skill, it's like, oh, if it lands, that's nice, but I'm not gonna rely on it, right? You're not supposed to rely on like RNG. Second skill, I know always will give me an increased defense. That's already, boom, I already know for sure I will get this. And then with this skill, if I build my crawl right, which everyone should build their crawl really tanky, really fast, really high effector systems, if I build him that way, I know for a fact my crawl can kill one unit on their team before he even gets to half health. And I've seen that all the time, and it's true. Because of the skill, you know for a fact, in the fight, there is one unit on their team who is irrelevant. And if it comes down to a 1v1, Crab will win 10 out of 10 times if he has his ultimate up. So it's like, that's what I'm telling you guys. So to summarize this full video of trying to change your mindset, because I see so many people complaining about certain things and being like, oh, RNG stinks, blah, blah, blah. Before you complain about the RNG, before you complain, I shouldn't have lost that fight, that Charles procced 1 billion times, that's on you if you lose to a Charles like that. Why do I say that? Because you should have thought about that before you went into the fight and tried your best to mitigate it. Now, if you did all what I told you, and you came in, you put a massive tank comp, you put Lilius, you put Arbiter Vildred, oh, that's the other one. Arbiter Vildred will always be revived if they don't have a way to kill it. And Fallen Cecilia, and then you still lose to the Charles, then okay. Then maybe I can be like, you did a lot because you brought a team that is so tanky and is so reliable because they do not rely on debuffs. They do not rely on missing because you're not going to miss on the Charles. And they don't care if the Charles counterattacks because they should be tanky enough to take on the Charles. So that's something you always have to accept. And that's one of the things that people complain a lot is Charles because it does seem like when he's on defense, he will always proc 2 times. And every time I lose is because, okay, I should have brought something to deal with him to reduce the chances of RNG because I just always have to assume he's that good. And that's why he's that good for defense. For offense, he's not that good because you can't rely on him to do the double proc. If you're trying to rely on him to double proc to remove a debuff, you just lost the game if he doesn't. Why would you take that risk? So that's just some food for thought for y'all. So just make sure whenever you go to a fight, take into consideration all the different RNG aspects that can happen in that one fight. Try to mitigate it as much as possible and try to fight it. The one exception to this whole rule is actually one of the artifacts, which is actually Idol's Cheer. And the reason why this is also an example and a counter to what my whole argument is because Alexa's Basket, you have, like, people are like, oh, what about Alexa's Basket? You win if you put it on offense, right? So why do I put it on my Kieran? Because I don't rely on Alexa's Basket. Alexa's Basket, like I said before, is icing on the cake. If the greater attack hits, great. This fight is easier. But if it doesn't, that's cool too. That's fine. That's why it really only works on like Arbiter Vildred and on Kieran because they don't rely on this artifact. They already have their own ways to do certain things. So that's it. That's the rant, not the rant. That's the brain you have to think about. Don't think RNG is messing you up. Try to think, how can it be more consistent? How can I make a more consistent team? Cleave teams, yeah, there's a lot of things you can do to make it more consistent, but that is why when I got to champion, I had to start building teams a different way. I had to start using a tanky, slower team to actually win a lot of these fights because there's no way I can cleave this team and feel comfortable with it. there's just no way. There's no unit that will make me feel comfortable trying to cleave this team. So that's why I started trying to think of like how to win, and boom, I was like, okay, slow teams, Karon will always do his job. Assassin Kali will always be faster than Basar because I have a good Assassin Kali. I'm confident in her. So that's how you have to think about it. But that is all I have for you guys today. I know it sounded like a rant near the end, but if you like it, don't forget to subscribe. But that's all I got. Peace.